Good morning. Welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Throughout this month of February, we are all participating via Zoom, and we hope that we will be back in person soon. I am Karen Griglack, and I'm joined by our guest, Reverend Aaron Norris. He's our service leader for today. We also have our music director, Tad Coriath, as well as Pete Wernick and Tracy Bush providing music. And the people who keep this working are AV techs, Deborah Mensch and Herb Axe. Oh, and Emily Coriath. Sorry, I didn't mean to forget one. And as I say our welcome words today, I want to invite you to shift into gallery mode if you haven't already done so. Scroll through the screen so that you can experience the lovely diversity of this congregation. You are all welcome here today, in all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes and sizes that come together in your uniqueness. You are welcome here. In all of the ways that you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all of the ways that you make your living and the places that you are from, you are welcome here. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, mystic, Muslim, Unitarian Universalist, with all of the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon that you will return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your hearts or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you here today. This congregation is committed to being a center for spiritual exploration and justice making. We have many opportunities during the week for social connection and for spiritual growth. We acknowledge that the land surrounding us is the stolen territory of the Arapaho people, and that many tribes roamed freely on this land for millennia before the arrival of white settlers. We commit ourselves to anti-racism and anti-oppression work within and beyond the walls of our congregation. If you're new here, we are really glad that you found us and hope that in this virtual setting, you can still experience the warmth and the love of this congregation. Each Sunday is more than a little different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. If you want to get better connected, please see the chat window for the link to our first-time visitors page and email the address of our office manager, Carol Pransky. If you're not receiving Connections Weekly already, please sign up in that last link in the chat. This low traffic email list is also the place to get news about signing up for in-person seating for future services when we finally get back to in-person. And finally, if we have any new visitors and you would like to introduce yourselves, please do so in the chat. We'd love to know who is among us. And everyone is invited to the virtual coffee hour and breakout rooms after the service. If you have a chalice at home, you can light it with us as Reverend Aaron lights our fellowship chalice. So we know where all of our chalices lit are. Please write in the chat, chalice lit in the name of your town. You're invited to say the words that are in the chat along with me. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action.
And now I'll sing our bowl again. inviting to draw you in deeper to the present moment and this, our beloved community. Blessed be.
While Tad has the day off, he did leave us with lots of lovely music this morning. Deborah will post the lyrics in the chat so that you can sing along at home. Let's start by sharing the love with hymn number 95. There is more love somewhere.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
I open our service with the words of the Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. And if there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Let us begin. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Time for All Ages. At the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greeley, we normally do a Time for All Ages for folks. And sometimes it's a story, and sometimes it's an activity, and sometimes we have somebody come join me, and sometimes it's just us. And I haven't gotten a chance, really, to introduce myself. I'm the Reverend Aaron Norris. Today, I'm going to share a story with you called The Three Questions. Now, this story has been told many, many times in many different ways. And one of the most famous tellings of this story was by a man by the name of Leo Tolstoy, who lived in Russia. And he was a Universalist, but his story was taken and embellished to some degree by a children's author by the name of John Muth, who also told the story of the three questions. And he imagined the story as a young person with a series of sort of fantastic friends who could potentially answer the three most important questions that were a mystery to this young boy named Nikolai. So I want to share that story with you today. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to three questions, Nikolai continued, then I feel I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered the questions, and then Sonia the heron spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance. Gogol, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, "You'll know when to do things if you watch and you pay close attention." Then Pushkin the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, "You can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need to have a pack to help keep watch and to help you decide when to do things. For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head." Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked the second question. Who is the most important one? "Those who are closest to heaven," Sonia said, circling up into the sky. "Those who know how to help the sick," said Gogol, who was stroking his bruised noggin. "Those who make the rules," growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more, and then he asked a third question. "But what is the right thing to do?" "Flying," Sonia said. "Having a good, fun time," laughed Gogol. "Fighting," barked Pushkin. Then Nikolai thought for a long while. He loved his friends, and he knew they were trying to do the best for him, but they hadn't fully answered his questions, or at least they didn't seem quite right. And then an idea came to him. "I know," he thought. "I'll go ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a very long time, and surely he will know the answers that I am looking for." So Nikolai hiked up into the high mountains where the old turtle lived alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old, and digging was hard for him. "I have three questions, and I have come to ask your help," Nikolai said. "When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do?" Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on his digging. "You must be tired," Nikolai said at last. "Let me help you." And the old turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept digging until all the rows were finished. And then, just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and the rain burst into darkened clouds. As they moved to the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. And running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured falling from a tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. And the storm raged on, and it banged the doors and the windows. And Leo smiled when he saw what Nikolai had done. The next morning was warm, and the birds sang, and all was well with the world. And the panda's leg was healing nicely. And at that moment, Sonia, Gogol, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt great peace with himself. He had wonderful friends. He had saved the panda, but he was also a little disappointed. He still hadn't found the real answers to his 3 questions. So he turned to Leo and he asked him one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday you stayed to help me dig my garden, and therefore the most important time was the time you spent in the garden with me. The most important one in that moment was me. And the most important thing you did was to help me with my gardening. And later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg. And the most important one was the panda. And the most important thing you do was to take care of her and to make her safe. Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. And the most important one is always the one that you are with. And the most important thing you do is for the one standing before you. These, my dear boy, are the answers to the most important questions in the world.
We now come to the time of our service, where we answer some of those questions. It is the time of our offering. And today, who is important is Sister Carmen's rent assistance. The Sister Carmen Community Center is a non-religious, nonprofit serving Eastern Boulder County. Through their family-centered programming, they promote health, safety, well-being, and economic stability by meeting one-on-one with the people that they serve. This includes a rent assistance program that has been helping people since early in the pandemic. And with the recent fires, their most urgent need is money to help people reestablish their living situations. So today we will help Sister Carmen by giving half of our plate away. Please give as generously as you are able. And after you have made your gift, please answer in the chat the following question. What resources, personal and spiritual, have you drawn on in your life to renew in difficult moments? for the work of this fellowship, bringing love, reason, compassion, and justice into this world, and to the Sister Carmen Rent Assistance Program, we dedicate these offerings. Now I want to invite us into the time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing.
Beloveds, we are grateful this week for Reverend Lydia and her attendance at the Pacific Western Region's Minister Institute, and for her attendance today at the PWR Assembly. I also am grateful for the opportunity to be here with you. Grateful for this morning. I hope that we are sharing together. I hope you too are also grateful in this morning. It is so important to have this community. Our hearts will reach out to the wider world, and there are concerns. The conflict in Ukraine weighs on many of us, and we reach out to the world hoping for a just peace, a real just peace, which is the only kind of lasting peace, and not merely a cessation of violence or aggression. With joy, we note the Olympics in the world, but also recognize the backdrop of a reality of human rights abuse, and a time when our ideals and the way the world works at the moment and how they don't always match, and it gives us bittersweet feelings. Our hearts reach out to those in our community, those who have expressed verbally things, and also those who have suffered silently with illness and with mental illness. For those who are experiencing food insecurity and housing insecurity. For those who are experiencing insecurity and anxiety of any kind, may this community be a blessing and a refuge. And if you are experiencing that, may our presence be a balm to you. We look forward this week to the changing of seasons and to spring. May we have expanded courage, expanding patience, and expanding love. Bound in the inescapable web of existence, may we never forget that we are not alone and that we are for and with one another. Amina and Harabe, amen, and peace be.
For many of us, this time of year signals the coming of spring and a season of renewal. And I have a wish for you, but this wish comes with words from someone who does them better than I do, Neil Gaiman. So here is our wish for you. I hope that in this year to come, you make mistakes. Because if you were making mistakes, then you were making new things, trying new things, learning, living, pushing yourself, changing your world. You're doing things you've never done before. And more importantly, you're doing something. So that's my wish for you and for all of us. And my wish for myself. Make new mistakes. Make glorious, amazing mistakes. Make mistakes no one's ever made before. Don't freeze. Don't stop. Don't worry that it isn't good enough or it isn't perfect, whatever it is. Art, or love, or work, or family, or life. Whatever it is that you're scared of doing, do it. Make your mistakes next year and forever.
that. My friends, you may not believe it. And sometimes I myself have a great difficulty believing it. But we are living in an age of miracle and wonder. As liberally religious people, this is one of the more difficult conceptions for us to accept sometimes. Wonder we are okay with, perhaps, but miracles are something tougher. And this is sometimes because we overestimate our capacity, our ability to get things done, our urge not to necessarily make those mistakes and have everything be perfect, our opportunity to have complete knowledge and to know things. Miracles are dismissed often as simply a misapprehension of reality or outright ignorance. But miracles are our reminders of the limitations of our capacity to predict and to know and to understand, and that those limitations will always be. The truth is, however empowered we might be, we are here but a very short time. And we can, alone, accomplish very little. Our own little lights, these lights of our lives, they shine very bright. And yet they are themselves small wonders, even miracles, but they are little lights of existence in a vast world that we wander. And some days, maybe even today, that can be a very hard reality. White Antelope, the famous Cheyenne warrior, who was part of the elite dog soldiers and also a victim of the massacre on the banks of the Sand Creek, not far from this room that I'm actually in on the plains of Colorado, famously sang in his death song, "Nothing lives long, only the earth and the mountains." In those few short words, he captured in his end one of the great truths about life, a parting gift to the wise and the foolish. And yet our lives, we feel so fully, we cannot fully explain why, not in a way that makes sense. They are themselves a wonder, our lives. We are filled with this little light that shines brighter than it ought to. And because of our capacity to create inner subjective realities, stories, we get to combine those lights for good or for ill. Something that we never could have done alone. Through the stories that we tell to one another, miraculously, in the face of harsh reality, miracles become possible. Think of the wisdom of the recently departed Thich Nhat Hanh, a monk in the Zen Buddhist tradition. In his book, You Are Here, he wrote, "When we practice in community, a sangha, we should take advantage of the group energy. Everybody is breathing mindfully. Everybody is walking mindfully. And we can see that the sangha is a boat. And having bricks of suffering in us, without a boat, we are in danger of sinking into the river of suffering. If you throw a stone into the river, it will sink. But if you have a boat, you can transport tons of pebbles and stones. The same is true of your pain and suffering. If you know how to use the boat, made of the energy generated by the sangha, you will not drown in your suffering. Because you put your trust in the sangha, you will have confidence. You can say to yourself, I am surrounded by the sangha. The sangha is generating energy of compassion in mindfulness, and I have confidence in that." End quote. We might cross from one edge of the water then to the other, transporting, even in our pain, from suffering to healing because of the miracle of a story, an intersubjective reality that we all live in, that we all have a hand in crafting. Our confidence is really resting in words, but we are transported to the other side. How is that not magic? One of my absolute favorite miracle stories from the Christian scriptures also takes place on a boat. It's one of the two miracles repeated in by all four of the gospel authors. And in the story, the teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, comes ashore from a boat with his disciples, and he is met by 5,000 people and is told by the disciples, "Send these people home. We can't feed them." And the teacher says there will be enough. And they say, "We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Send them home." And it's obviously a difficult moment. Now, you know how the story ends. Somehow there is enough, and that is a miracle. Now, why is it one of my favorite miracles? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first is because it says something about how ministry works, how and when we minister. That is how and when we take care of each other. Remember back to the time for all ages. Who is the most important person in that story that I just told just now? Was it Jesus? No. Was it the disciples? No. It was the crowd. Well, then what was the most important thing to do? The most important thing is to help the most important person, to minister to them, to give them support, to share their pain, compassion, and healing, which is why the teacher does not send them away, even in the most difficult situation. When is the most important time? Now. Because now is often an inconvenient time, but the world is full of surprises, and we don't have exactly what we might wish for now, but this is the moment we have. And this inconvenient time is the present in the story. So that's the first part of the reason I like that story, because it answers those 3 questions. What is the second reason that it's one of my favorite miracles? Because it's a miracle that I don't have any trouble believing, and it speaks to the inherent goodness of human beings. When I was a child, I remember seeing some fancy movie where all the food was piled into these baskets and then raised up very high, and then hocus pocus, a ton of fish and bread fell out in the ground. Now, if that happens to be something you want to believe, that's okay. I will not begrudge you that kind of miracle, but I don't believe in that miracle, and I don't believe that's what happened. What I believed happened is much simpler. Those baskets went around, and some folks took something from the basket because they had a need. But a lot of those people traveled some distance and came far and undoubtedly brought some of their own food, and they put more in than they took out. And they shared at a moment, even a moment when they needed to be ministered to, and found the capacity to minister back. And that's miraculous. That's miraculous that those 3 questions are constantly being asked and constantly being answered. Now, my friends, I don't want you to get me wrong. Miracles are not always good. We live in days of miracles and wonder made by the intersubjective reality that we create, by the stories we tell, but there are ugly stories too. White antelope was not killed because of a righteous story. Our story of systemic racism is not a good miracle, even if it has fooled countless people who otherwise have inherent worth and dignity into being the hands and the means of terrible evil in this world. Even a miracle that may have made us capable of that evil. The lie that we can't trash this planet and use it as an object or a tool, and that there will never be any consequences. This lie in this day and age has created a world where we, most likely in this service, will live to see a day that the North Pole is free of ice. That's a miracle, something that no human being has ever witnessed in the history of human beings. And you are likely to see it someday soon. That's the same lie that stopped snows from falling for 3 months straight at the end of last year, and for December winds that blew 150 miles an hour so hard that they ripped 3-story trees out from the ground and blew fire and sowed sorrow in our very midst. Where do these stories come from? Where do these lessons come from? Well, surely they come from nature. Our nature is inextricably tied up with the natural world. We see miraculous stories repeated in nature, both good and bad, over and over. Indeed, much though some would like to claim otherwise, our nature, small as it is part of that nature of the larger story. And here is what I want to remind us of with a lesson from the mountaintop. In ecology, a sudden pronounced environmental change is often referred to as a disturbance, a moment when there was no chance for prediction, no expectation, in effect, a miracle. And again, it's not necessarily something good and it's not necessarily something bad, but it is a profound change overnight. We might, for example, look across the length of human time and repeat white antelope's observation that nothing lives long, only the earth and the mountains. But even with that statement, even then, miracles, wonders, disturbances defy our expectations. Within our lifetimes in the Pacific Northwest, there was a mountain that literally blew itself apart in seconds before our eyes. In geologic terms, the Mount St. Helens was very young, forming well within the age of human beings. It was less than 40,000 years old, but it did exist for thousands of human lifetimes. The Puyallup tribes called the mountain Luwitlatke, meaning the Lady of Fire, and the Cowlitz tribes called it Lavalate, meaning the Smoking Mountain. But the mountain didn't look like your cartoon volcano. The mountain stood out prominently with a symmetrical cone that was covered in extensive snow and ice, and many saw it as a mirror of the holy Mount Fuji across the Pacific. Skirting its base for miles was dense evergreens, and sitting below was a dense skirt of spruce and hemlock, and a lake called Spirit Lake, a beautiful placid mirror that reflected the peak, a place where people could tell stories, a place where people built around under the watchful eye of the mountain. And for a few months in human time and a moment in geologic time, the north side of the mountain began to swell. And then on May 18th, 1980, the mountain blasted itself apart in the deadliest and costliest volcanic activity in this country's history. 57 people were killed, 47 bridges were destroyed, 185 miles of highway were destroyed. The lateral blast, the side of the mountain blew away at a speed of 300 miles an hour. A cloud of ash and toxic smoke rose 15 miles into the air. With 24 megatons of thermal energy, 7 of which were the direct result of the blast, this disturbance had the energy output equivalent to 1,600 times the size of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. What was explainable in geologic time was incomprehensible in human time, a kind of miracle of misfortune. Now, I was 6 years old, and yet I remember those images vividly. I remember from my home in Littleton, looking out onto the Rocky Mountains out of my bedroom window and thinking, could that happen here? Could one of those mountains suddenly and ferociously tear itself apart? What did my world really mean? Now, I had the good fortune of having a father who was a geologist, and so my fears were quickly assuaged, but that kind of devastation has always left an impression on me. My childhood impression, even in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, was not alone. According to the author Eric Wagner in his book, After the Blast, in the blast area, the sense of devastation was greater than mere statistics could convey. Mount St. Helens had always been the most beautiful of the Cascade Peaks, and its summit the most symmetrical. Gone was the perfect white cone, the dark forest that had cloaked it, and the deep, clear lake that reflected it. And in their place was a hollow volcano, in a wrecked landscape, black and gray. And when President Jimmy Carter toured the area by helicopter 4 days later, he could only marvel at the waste. The moon looks like a golf course compared to what's up there, he said to a scrum of media when he returned, and local reporters were less glib. Death is everywhere, wrote one in the Portland Oregonian. The living are not welcome. After witnessing such a cataclysmic event, ecologists in the U.S. Forest Service had a working hypothesis that this story that was told by politicians and the press was likely true, that it was impossible to believe that anything could have survived. Expecting something like a lunar exhibition, the surveyors made a foray by helicopter into the blast zone a few weeks later, at a dangerous moment when no one was quite sure if the volcano was done. And they found that the story was quite untrue. In another miracle, in a miraculous turn, life had, within days, begun the process of reclaiming the terrain. On their arrival, they found shoots of fireweed miles within the blast zone, 2 to 3 inches tall, and visible algae had begun to form in the stream. And there were mounds of dirt that were piling up, that were signs of burrowing pocket gophers who had survived the blast. And there were even tracks showing that the elk, too, had begun to re-enter the blast zone. Yes, death was everywhere, but life was there as well. Welcome or not, ready or not, life was returning. In the shadow of this mountain where the dense forest once stood, there was now not one miraculous tale, but two. One of death and destruction, and one of life and recovery. The story of the disturbance was a long time coming in geologic terms, though the moment was felt in human time in an instant. The story of recovery has been one of decades, but in the geologic sense, it was almost instant. My friends, change is part of reality. Sudden change and gradual change. What makes it good or bad? We never stop in the same river twice. What makes change miraculous, what makes change meaningful, is not objective reality we live in. It's the inner subjective reality that we create together. Our stories and our framing form the inevitable outcomes. Miraculous happens when we weave our stories together. The lesson of the mountaintop is not that things have recovered, but that things are recovering. And the lessons by the water's edge are that we recover as a community. And both teach us the process. The process that recovery doesn't wait for the proper moment. Recovery is not about going back to the way things have been, but to go on from significant setbacks. It's about being part of an interconnected system in an inconvenient time. about a miraculous sharing of little lights together to bring profound and good change, to tell good stories, about seeing the most important one, about doing the most important thing, and about when is the most important time. Now, the only moment that we have the capacity to change. May we be so wise. Amina and Harabe.
We have some music from a face that is familiar to most of you. So let's let Pete Wernick bring a little light that might be mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Shine my light around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine my light around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine my light around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. If someone tries to pick a fight, I'm gonna let it shine. Someone tries to pick a fight, I'm gonna let it shine. Someone tries to pick a fight, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Even if I'm not feeling good, I'm gonna let it shine. Even if I'm not feeling good, I'm gonna let it shine. If I'm not feeling good, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
We extinguish the chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. These we will carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Please don't run away just yet. We have more music to come and Reverend Aaron's benediction. But first, we have the part that we all love and dread, the announcements. After the service today, you can choose to join a discussion with today's service leaders in a breakout room or unstructured coffee hour breakout rooms with members and friends. At our Sunday service, next Sunday, we will begin to explore the ways that BVUUF is a community rising together. And we'd love to know your answers to that question. In what ways does BVUUF inspire you to rise? Are you inspired toward social justice work or personal growth? Are you inspired to rise and to heal the wounds in yourself or in others? Please make a brief audio or video recording of your answer just a couple of sentences, and send it to Tad Correa. Contact information is in the chat, or an even easier option, call and leave a voicemail with your answer. If you have photographs that show BVUUF as a community rising, please send those too. The final video with your answers overlaid with music from our fellowship choir will then be shown in the service on February 13th. Thank you all for your consideration, and we look forward to hearing your responses. And this deadline has been pushed back because we want to hear from you. So Tuesday, February 8th is when we'd like those in for. And of course, the day before that service, on Saturday, February 12th, it's BVUUF Talent Time from 7 to 8:30 on Zoom. We'll enjoy a smorgasbord of homegrown fellowship fun. To participate, send a video of yourself, your family, your pets, doing something that you love to do and that you'd like to share with this community. Send it to Tad at musicdirector@bvuuf.org. It's in the chat. And this could be of any variety of talent, a song, a dance, a poem, a demonstration of something you love to do, like cooking, gardening, hiking, woodworking. If you'd like to demonstrate your skill live, we can do that too. Just let Tad know in advance. Entries recorded or live should be no longer than 3 minutes. Tad might ask you for a brief intro or explanation of your talent during the event, and there's no need to pre-record this. Thank you guys so much, and we hope to see you then.
Thank you all today for letting me have a little bit of time in your pulpit. And I want to thank especially Reverend Lydia. It is an honor to be holding that space for her. I'd send you away with a blessing. Some of you may know this one. If so, keep yourself muted and share along. But to those who came here seeking the holy, may the holy go with you and in you. And to those who came here seeking to embrace life, may life return your affection. To those who came here seeking a better way, may you find that way and the patience and the courage to take it little by little together. And to those who came here seeking a better world, may we make it so with the loving work of our hearts and our hands. Go in peace. Amina and Harabe.